The world has changed a lot in the last few years, and the national choral organizations are going to have to adapt. Let's find out what Choral Canada is doing to meet the challenge. Welcome to ChoirSuccess, helping your choir or chorus survive and thrive in the 21st century. And today I have with me Morna Edmundson from Vancouver. Morna Edmundson is the brand new president of Choral Canada. She was also serving as a board member of Chorus America for 9 years, but she's better known here in Vancouver as the director for 35 years and founding director of the Elektra Women's Chorus. She's also the director of EnChor Choir. And if you appreciate this content we're doing for you, please hit the like button. We're going to do one video every week, so if you want to be notified, subscribe and click on the bell icon. Welcome, Morna, to the show.
Hi, Tom. Nice to be here.
It's so great to have you here. I appreciate your coming in. So first of all, for the sake of the viewers who are not in Canada, and even for some Canadians maybe, what does Choral Canada do?
Sure.
And you know, what is the...
What are we?
Yeah.
Right.
What are you and what do you do?
Choral Canada celebrates and champions group singing in all its forms across Canada. So that means that both within our own ecosystem of, you and I who know choirs and know about each other, we've got tools and things and networking, awareness building, learning programs for the choral community. But we're also that organization, we're a nonprofit in Canada, we're that organization that shows everybody else. So audiences, funders, school districts, anybody who needs to know how amazing choral music is, what's going on across the country.
Okay.
So that's really our purview, and that is constantly changing in that we're trying to look at societal changes and what needs to change in terms of what we do.
Well, certainly a mission near and dear to my heart and yours.
Yeah, for sure.
I've always been a little bit confused about the relationship between Choral Canada, and I know that in every province there's also a choral federation or something. So how does that all fit together?
Right. So that is a sort of a dance that we have been doing together for many, many decades, right? And so the way it's landed at the moment is that choirs belong to their provincial choral organization, and individuals can too. But individuals, so conductors, composers, administrators, industry people, belong to Choral Canada.
Right.
So my choir doesn't join Choral Canada. I, as a conductor, join Choral Canada. And members of their provincial choral organization are what's called component members of Choral Canada, and they have access to the resources if they belong to their provincial choral organization.
I see.
So that way we're building each other up. Right? We don't want to take away what people are doing on a more local level, where they're more likely to know each other personally in a provincial choral organization. We have this much broader picture of what's going on across an entire country, where I would never know what's going on in Montreal if not for Choral Canada.
Indeed, okay.
Yeah.
And so does Choral Canada coordinate with the provinces to get
actually,
things done?
we have board members of Choral Canada who are representing provincial choral organizations. So the provincial choral organizations get together and say, we're going to have these 4 people serving as board members of Choral Canada, and that way we can get input and we have a really good line of communication, both directions to those organizations.
Right.
Yeah.
Would you say, what percentage of the choirs and choruses in Canada are actually members of the provincial associations?
What a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I've just become the president, in the last few weeks.
Well, we'll cut you some slack.
Cut me some slack. Well, there are 28,000 choirs in Canada.
I know. When I read that number,
amazing.
I thought 28,000 and 3.5 million people, which is like 1 in every 10 people.
Exactly. So if
country.
you were standing on a subway platform with 100 people, you and 9 other people sing in a group, but you don't know who each other is. You don't know. You're not necessarily doing the same kind of group singing, but you're involved in a choir. That could be a school choir, that could be a church choir, community choirs like you and I are involved in. So I find that incredibly exciting and heartening and everything, but it's a little bit invisible in society. If you ask most people, what percentage of the Canadian population sings in a choir, they would not say 10%.
No, for sure.
Right?
And if you were on a SkyTrain platform and somebody said, pick out the choral singers, It would be impossible,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. We're blended, we're hiding in society. Yeah. So, so Choral Canada is looking to elevate the profile of that.
Right.
And part of that has to do with strengthening the organizations. So there are research projects that Choral Canada's done, partly to do with the pandemic and some before, that my choir as an individual organization could never have the bandwidth to do. It
Right.
wouldn't be in our mandate to do it. It is in Choral Canada's mandate to do it. And those are things, well, the most recent one that is really kind of shocking results is what happened to public school singing
Right.
in the last 2 years with the pandemic. It's been, I think, over 70% of programs have been cut. Over 90% of public, choral concerts, performances in schools didn't happen.
Right, of course.
And that's going to have a really horrible long-term effect. So now that we know that, the research has been done and it was a collaborative project between several organizations. Now that we know that, how can we support the schools so that that doesn't take a generation to come back, if
Well,
at
absolutely.
all, right?
Yeah.
How do we support the teachers? How do we advocate at the schools to do that? Now, we are not only about music education. So there's a Canadian Music Educators Association, but we collaborate where it makes sense for us to be a collaborating organization with somebody else. That's what we'll do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, a quick one for the audience.
Yeah.
If you're watching along, if your choir or chorus is a member of your provincial or state choral federation or organization, just type yes or no down in the comments along with your group name. That'll be fun. We'll keep track of
Yeah,
that.
it'd be interesting to see.
So, as I said in the introduction,
Yeah.
the world has changed a lot in the last little while, and makes me wonder, what does an organization like Choral Canada have to do to adapt to the new conditions that we have in the country?
Right. So I'll sort of go in two directions with that response. One is what we've been doing during the pandemic. And it ain't over yet. We're all
Please
hoping
don't
we
say
can.
that.
Yeah,
I'm so exhausted.
Me too. Me too. So, like every umbrella organization, we pivoted quickly to try to figure out what do people need and how can we serve them. And those were different kinds of things, some of which will stay. So we started doing these. I think they're called social check-ins. At Choral Canada, and we literally had random breakout rooms with people from all across the country, and people loved them. They saw familiar faces on the screen, they saw people they'd never met before in their lives, and that gave us a great sense of collaboration and encouragement. So we're going to continue those, even if the pandemic, when the pandemic is completely behind us. I think that Zoom has changed our access to one another.
Very
so
good.
That's really great. The other thing that's changed, and whether this is any result of the pandemic or just coincidental with the pandemic, is a huge social awareness of social matters about inequity, inaccessibility, privilege, those kinds of things, racism.
And this is the whole DEI.
Yeah.
Or am I getting the acronym
well,
right?
it depends which organization you are,
Okay.
what order the letters go in. But accessibility is about who can get in. Is there a membership fee? Is there some kind of barrier to do with what kind of a choir or singing group you are involved in that means you can't get at the resources that we offer? Diversity has to do with racial diversity, urban, rural, all kinds of things where we don't want to just keep cloning ourselves and saying this organization serves everybody.
Right.
Equity has it also to do with, that fantastic thing that was on YouTube where if you never have to worry about where your next meal comes, takes two
Right.
steps forward, and people end up on that big field,
Yeah.
starting in very different places. Equity attempts to address those things so that everybody's starting in the same place.
And how does that manifest in a choir chorus kind of environment?
I'll pick urban rural as an example of
okay.
that. We live in a big city, so we can go to concerts all the time, and we can find people, and we can get together
There's
with
like
them.
9 choirs we could choose to
Yeah,
join.
and there's a music store down the street and all that kind of stuff. If you're in a small community, how do we make sure that you don't have fewer resources, right? And with the whole online world, there's a huge opportunity there to bring some of those things into equity.
Oh yeah, of course.
And what's the other one? I think I haven't, inclusion maybe, right? So that would be maybe people, just a simplistic version of that, people who don't think they can sing or don't think they can sing well. And I mean, I could talk for an hour about that. Are there singing ensembles for a person who feels really like they can't to be brought along? There are many, many reasons why choirs exist and singing groups exist. And an organization like ours used to have a pretty rigid definition of what choral music means.
Right.
So our name is Choral Canada, but we talk now about singing groups and group singing to try to broaden that definition so that there's no implied or real bias against somebody who doesn't do traditional choral music based in a Western art music tradition, right?
Right.
So it could be a cultural tradition, it could be a small group of people doing something, it could be a mental health choir that's not aspiring to sing Bach, right?
Right.
But that's still group singing.
Yes.
Right? Does that group call itself a choir? Maybe yes, maybe no. So we're trying to have more people see themselves in the work that we're doing. And that's a whole brand new conversation for us. Like, this is the beginning of us trying to figure out, where are those groups? Who are they?
Well, I think it's really important that those, I don't know what to call them, non-standard, non-traditional singing groups know that Choral Canada is there for them.
Yeah.
Right, and that they're looking to figure out what they can do to help and how to support them.
Exactly, and it's not a we're sitting here with all the resources and all the information. I mean, we're actually a small organization with, a big, we hope, an even bigger tent than we've had before. But we have to. We're just at the beginning of this. We can't say we know who needs us or we know what they need. We have to start looking, we have to start talking. And it may be that there's an entire segment of group singing that doesn't need us. And we have to be okay with that.
Right.
But right now we don't even know that.
We don't know, yeah.
Right? So we're at this kind of exploratory thing to see who's out there and to see if we can find them and have real conversations with them. Otherwise, we could invent some new program that doesn't serve anybody.
Right. Which would be wasteful.
Yeah, it would be terribly wasteful. And so we're looking at all the things we do, the competitions we do. How do we redefine that? Because excellence means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and not just straight on choral, all my vowels are lined up.
Precision and vowels and tuning and all of that stuff.
And I mean, that's a choir geek thing that I love and you love, and you know what I'm talking about that.
Yeah.
But that is not the only definition of excellence. That is one definition of excellence. And even within that, I could spend a lifetime exploring and working towards whatever that excellence is.
You can never get to the end.
No, ever.
And I've often wondered, if I may interject, if this, of course, people who love choirs and love singing, they want to be great at it. They want to be as good at it as they can be.
Yeah.
And so there's this natural focus on quality and getting better all the time.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that is also related to this, most people think they can't sing, right? That they were told somewhere, well, you're not good enough, or you can't sing, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I think they wind up abdicating their own voice and saying, well, I'll leave it to the people who are really good at it.
I know, that just breaks my heart. I met this guy who had a beautiful speaking voice. And I said, I hope you sing in a choir. I do that in banks and restaurants and stuff all the time. I say to the waiter, I hope you sing in a choir.
Yeah.
And this guy said, oh no, I can't sing. And I said, well, what makes you think that? Oh no, really, I can't sing. And well, why? Well, my grade 7 teacher told me to mouth Good King Wenceslas.
Oh my gosh.
And it breaks my heart that he remembers how old he was, who said it to him, what song it was.
It was actually slightly traumatic.
Right? And he's now in his 60s. Mm-hmm. This happened to him 50 years ago, more than 50 years ago. Probably his voice had changed in grade 7 where the other boys' voices hadn't changed, or something. And it's taken him all this time to articulate that. And I just feel so sad about all those people. So
we really have to be nice to the 11-year-old boys of the world.
Yeah, please, absolutely. And I think the world has changed a lot in that way right now.
Yeah.
But there are so many impactful ways to sing together with other people. It doesn't have to be that choir that wakes up every morning to have their vowels be perfect. I mean, I literally cry when I go to choir concerts. I don't cry about a lot of things in life, but I cry when I go to choral concerts. I used to embarrass my kids a lot. And because just the act of people singing together moves me. It just somehow speaks to my core. I don't care at that moment whether their vowels are perfect.
Right.
If I went to a choir that said, our vowels are perfect, we're singing Bach, whatever, then great, then I expect that from them. And that's what I want to hear. But I could go to a social justice choir concert and just feel this incredible energy with the audience.
Right.
An incredible impact from what's being sung about and how you can see the people engaged in it. I'm equally moved by that, you know. So I think that we as Choral Canada and just as the choral community in general, we've got to look at all of those things and find the excellence in all those things. Let them tell us what excellence is in their own type of singing and figure out how we can help them.
Right, right. And I want to add that I find sometimes that the most perfect singing may not be the most impactful or most authentic.
Yeah, funny how that is sometimes, right? There's a kind of chemistry. Well, and this is the joy of it. I mean, like you just said, we could spend our entire lives working towards something, but you can't bottle that something.
Yes.
You can't say, today, I'm going to make sure this performance is perfect. We come off stage sometimes, right? And we look at each other and we're just like, something just happened.
Yes,
or I'm in the middle of a piece that I thought was a good piece. And when there's an audience there, there's actual magic and chemistry going on that I didn't even anticipate.
Right.
And it's not like I don't understand this piece of music, but I didn't understand the impact it would have on the audience.
Right.
I love that.
See, this is what I want for more people in our culture.
Yeah.
And actually, let's get the audience slightly involved in this one. Do you believe anybody can sing? Anybody at all? Write down in the comments why you think yes or why you think no.
Cool.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, I want to see what those comments are.
So let's shift gears a little
Sure.
bit. Of course, we're talking a lot about Canada, a lot about what's happening up here in Canada, but you've also for a long time, almost a decade, been on the board of Chorus America, which I realize is not exactly an analogous organization,
it's similar.
But what's the difference?
Yeah. So in the States, there are many national choral organizations, right? I mean, not dozens and dozens, but ACDA, American Choral Directors Association. There's now something called NAFME, which is mainly concerned with college, university choirs and things. So the difference is that Chorus America, the difference between those other American organizations and Chorus America is it's concerned about the sustainability of choral organizations. So organizations, choirs, and individuals do belong to that. At their conference, there's a lot of talk at the moment about ADEI. There's a lot of talk about marketing, fundraising, organizational sustainability, and board members come to Chorus America, come to the conference alongside their conductor and alongside the manager of the choir. And there's this great sense, we don't have to figure this out on our own. We can go and ask for a buttonhole meeting with somebody about governance, or those kinds of things that are needed. They're the kind of thing they're the big part of the iceberg underneath what the audience sees.
Right, of course.
But if that big part of the iceberg isn't sustainable or thriving or whatever, this other stuff isn't possible. Or if it is possible, it's a fluke and you're lucky.
Right.
Right? So I think that Chorus America is very aware that their job is more about the incorporated, the not-for-profit sector, and the choirs that have that structure of artistic direction, administration, and governance, and how do all those things thrive together.
Right.
Yeah. And Choral Canada is sort of trying to do it all, but we are also involved in that, very much so. We are the place, I would say, in Canada, more so than the provincial choral organizations, that's promoting and trying to provide resources for the whole organization. It's still more conductor focused than Chorus America is. Composers are also members of both organizations, so it's where we meet each other. But I would say Choral Canada is a smaller organization, but actually is the one in Canada.
I see.
Chorus
Yeah.
America can be more focused because somebody else is doing more of the choral, listening to a lot of choirs at their conference
Okay.
and that kind of thing.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
And I've always felt that even though there is room for innovation
Yeah.
in business models within different kinds of singing groups,
Sure, yeah.
that a lot of that work has already been done, right? That people, like you said, that
Yeah.
we know how to make a good audience development and fundraising situation and how to apply for grants and all of that baseline work below the water level,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
you were saying.
Yeah.
Like there are well-known ways to do that. And so you
Yeah.
could go to Choral Canada or to Chorus America, presumably,
Yeah.
to get that
Yeah,
information.
exactly. And we are, again, with this new lens of Choral Canada of trying to make the tent bigger, make people see the tent, and make people decide whether they can come into the tent, whether they want to come into the tent. We hope that they can. Do they want to? Is there anything in this tent for them? We will be looking at different ways that people need us and need those services. But I mean, there are people incorporating choirs who have no idea that there are other people that have been through this journey with them.
Right.
Or not with them, been through this exact journey.
Yeah, before
seen
them.
all the warts, seen all the, the things that can go wrong and the struggles. And it is a sector that relies a lot on volunteerism.
Of course.
So how do we make the best use of people's time when they volunteer for our choir? Well, we can find out what 50 other choirs have done about X and share that with them.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That's really great.
Yeah.
So I know we tend to focus a little bit on what are the problems we're trying to solve, right? What is all that? But let me ask you the opposite. What is great about the choral world in 2022?
What is great is the internet, I would say.
The internet,
It's really
yeah.
changed everything because I can now, I'm trying to think back to when I first got involved in choral music. We didn't really know who each other was. And we take a lot of inspiration anytime choir people get together in what each other is doing. So, I didn't realize I could do a collaboration like that. Oh, look at this. Here's a choir collaborating with a health organization in their community. Here's a choir doing a kind of repertoire that I didn't know about before, or commissioning a composer. So we have access to what everybody else is doing, and as much time as we want to spend. When we meet live at Podium, which is our biennial conference with Choral Canada, there are formal things going on. I'll go to a session and it's about a topic I'm interested in and I'm listening and taking notes and whatever. Then there are the things that happen afterwards.
Right.
Standing around in the room with the other people that were really excited about something they just heard, or arranging to have breakfast the next day with somebody who, right? Things happen. I've planned a choir exchange in the lineup in the cafeteria, and it happened between Ottawa and Vancouver.
Yeah.
At a Podium, because it's where we realize we have kindred spirits with people, or
Right,
we
right.
find out about a whole community.
Well, this is often the real reason to go to a convention.
Yeah,
right?
it really is. But coming back to the, I'll use an analogy of an ecosystem, because I really feel, and I'm not talking about the pandemic now, I'm just talking about the trajectory that choral music was on even before the pandemic. I think of the world that we're in like a little garden. And if the soil's no good, the plant can't grow and all that.
Yeah.
And the parts of that garden are obviously the choir, the conductor, the audience, the board, the composers, and the music industry, right? All of those things are interdependent. And so I love nothing more than buying choral music and paying for it, right? And paying retail for it kind of thing, because I want that composer to go, hey, I can make a decent part of my living writing for choirs.
You see, it would be good if
Right?
people
Yeah.
could think of that as a career. And they do,
Yeah,
many.
yeah. And now I think it's actually much more viable because composers have websites and composers can be published by a bunch of different publishers. They can self-publish. They can do workshops with choirs online. They can come into a rehearsal on a screen
Right.
and talk to a high school choir that's doing a piece of theirs.
Yeah.
Right? You know, those things weren't available to us 20 years ago.
I mean, it sucks
Even
if you're
10
an
years ago.
airline, but it's good for...
That's right. There were a lot of things for which the pandemic was not good.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, you know, I've been deprived of what I love to hear
that
for 2
in-person
years.
stuff.
But this ecosystem and the recognition of the ecosystem, I think is in a really great place.
So imagine that I was a budding choral conductor and I wanted to, connect with some of those communities. Where would I go online to find these people?
I think I would start looking locally at who's doing interesting things and just get to know, we need the people energy sometimes of
like visit a choir.
Yeah, exactly. Ask if you can go to their rehearsal. We all gain a lot by, and networking sounds like such a crass kind of term, but getting to know
I've
people.
become used to the term.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Branding and networking, 2 words I've gotten used to.
Yes,
So I think that there's that, just broaden your horizons, but locally as well as online. You can go down a bazillion rabbit holes, and they're very, very interesting online, but eventually they're going to lead to a person who has a creative idea. And how does that person think? When I'm commissioning a composer, and Elektra has commissioned over 100 pieces in all these years, I troll around online first to listen to them talk.
Oh,
I mean, not first. I listen to their music first, and I go, oh, okay, that's an interesting person. Then I want to hear them talk about their music.
Why do you want to hear that?
I just want to hear how they think.
Okay,
I want to know what kind of an articulation they give to what they're doing.
And can you usually find that
Yeah,
online?
usually. Sometimes it's sparse, and I encourage composers to do that. Make sure there is online content if you're talking about your music. And then I feel like I've got a 3-dimensional picture, and then I will start to, email them and approach them and whatever.
Right.
Yeah. But it's, I don't just want the piece of music. I want the interaction with the composer and their whole way of thinking.
And it's so much easier now to get that.
Yeah, this is where we are right now. And I mean, it's again, pandemic aside, I would say choral music, which some people who aren't in our industry might think is kind of like an old dying off thing, is very vibrant, very vibrant. People commissioning all over the place, people singing all over the place. Incredibly creative ways of giving concerts and collaborating with others. All of that is happening. It's just bubbling up. The national choral organizations are making sure we see that, that we're inspired by it. So we just have to kind of right this little pandemic ship.
Yes,
that has been so massively detrimental to choral music. But what was there before will come back.
Well, I hope that if nothing else, the silver lining around the pandemic might be that people realize what they missed.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
Much,
Both of my choirs, did a whole year on Zoom.
Oh man, yeah.
And the tenacity, but then the love, like the absolute joy in seeing each other, even on a screen.
Well, it's their circle of friends more than... I told you earlier, you asked me how many choirs, in my other role as the guy who makes software for choirs, you asked me, did a lot of choirs fold during the pandemic? And as I told you down in the lobby, no, they really didn't. It was maybe 1 or 2% higher than the baseline anyway. So that to me means that an awful lot of choirs were working really hard to make things work, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I find that a really, really encouraging number. I'm so glad you had that in your head. Because you're right that we will hopefully never take for granted this amazing thing that we have, and it takes every member of that choir. I mean, I don't think I lost anybody because they just said, not interested in choir anymore because we can't do it properly. Right. They were like, we're going to stick together. We're going to get through this, more tenacious than ever, more connected to each other. The EnChor singers said that specifically. We feel more connected as a community having gotten through this.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Yeah, and I just love that. Yeah.
Morna, where can you go online to find out about Choral Canada?
choralcanada.org. And write to us and respond to what you see, and especially if you're a group that said, oh, I wouldn't have called myself a choir. Right. But we are a singing group. Or we are people engaged in singing together. You don't even have to be a group.
What about a chorus? Can a chorus be?
Yes, okay. That's the Canadian-US kind of thing. No, any people who sing together, if there's some way that we can be useful to you, even just connecting you to other people. Making you visible is one thing, and Chorus America has been doing that during the pandemic as well. Making you visible, helping you find each other. Sometimes I think when I'm trying to think, okay, what does an organization do? what would be missing if it didn't exist,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we would be in our little silos doing our choral music thinking that's all there is.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, we're aware of all these things across Canada, around the world, you know, because we are looking outside of ourselves and the information's there.
I'm very thankful for what Choral Canada does.
Thank you.
When is the next podium?
Next podium is in Montreal
Montreal?
in 2024.
2020. So you must have just had one
spring.
then.
We did. We had one in Toronto.
In Toronto, okay.
Yeah, in 22. And, you know, we really agonized about whether we could have an in-person conference.
Mm-hmm.
And my gosh, the energy when we did
Oh, I'm sure.
was so
Yes.
fabulous. It was more than we expected.
And who can go to podium?
That's a good question. This past year in Toronto, we removed the requirement to be a member of Choral Canada
very
to go
good.
to podium.
Yeah.
That's a very unusual move. Most
see.
conferences don't do that.
You have to be a member, yeah.
So we haven't decided yet.
I see.
I believe, don't quote me, about 2024. I think that's a decision yet to be made. Did that impact who was at Toronto? Probably.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't looked at anything about exactly how that played out.
Well, so is it difficult to become a member of Choral
Not
Canada?
at all. Just go
No.
to the website, and there are different categories for your involvement with the organization. And there has been some kind of fee flexibility during the pandemic as well.
Right.
So we'll see where that goes in the future. Again, that speaks to the accessibility question. So that's something we're really looking at. Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Yeah,
being with us today.
my pleasure,
It's been really,
Tom.
really nice to talk to you.
Ditto.
And if you've enjoyed this content today, please like this video to bless the YouTube algorithm. And again, we're going to be doing a video once every week. So if you want to be notified, subscribe and click the bell icon. Have a lovely day.